A mashup is when you take two or more stories or songs and you blend them into something new. This month, we're going to take some well-known fairy tales and do a mashup with stories from our scriptures. Hopefully, what we create speaks a spiritual word to us. And I'm going to need a little bit of your help today as we tell the story. Here it is. Once upon a time, there was an old mother pig who had 3 little pigs and not enough food to feed them. So when they were old enough, she sent them out into the world to seek their fortunes. The first pig was very lazy. He didn't want to work at all, and he built his house out of straw. The second little pig worked a little bit harder, but he was somewhat lazy too, and he built his house out of sticks. Then they sang and they danced and they played together the rest of the day.
Jesus once said, "Everybody who hears these words of mine and doesn't put them into practice will be like a fool who built a house on sand."
The next day, a wolf happened to pass by the lane where the 3 little pigs lived. And he saw the straw house, and he smelled the pig inside. And he thought the pig would make a mighty fine meal, and his mouth began to water. So he knocked on the door and said, "This is where I need your help to say it with me now. Little pig, let me in, let me in." But the little pig saw the wolf's big paws through the keyhole, and he answered back, "No, no, no, not by the hair of my chinny chin chin." Then the wolf showed his teeth and said, "Then I will huff, and I'll puff, and I'll blow your house down."
Jesus once said, "The rain fell, the floods came, and the wind blew and beat against that house built on sand. It fell and was completely destroyed."
So the wolf huffed and puffed, and he blew the house down. The wolf opened his jaws very wide, and he bit down as hard as he could, but the first little pig escaped and ran away to hide with the second pig. The wolf continued down the lane, and he passed by the second house made of sticks. And he saw the house, and he smelled the pigs inside. His mouth began to water as he thought about the fine dinner that they would make. And so he knocked on the door and said, little pigs, let me in, let me in." But the little pigs saw the wolf's pointy ears through the keyhole, and so they answered back, "No, no, no, not by the hair on our chinny chin chins." The wolf then said, "I'll huff, and I'll puff, and I'll blow your house down." And so he huffed, and he puffed, and he blew the house down. The wolf was greedy, and he tried to catch both pigs at once. But he was too greedy, and he got neither. His big jaws clamped down on nothing but air. And the 2 little pigs, they scrambled away as fast as their little hooves would carry them. The wolf chased them down the lane, and he almost caught them. But they made it to the brick house and slammed the door shut before the wolf could catch them. The 3 little pigs were very frightened. they knew the wolf wanted to eat them. And that was very, very true. The wolf hadn't eaten all day, and he had worked up quite a large appetite chasing the pigs around. And now he could smell all three of them inside. And he knew that the three pigs would make a lovely feast. So he knocked on the door and said, little pigs, let me in. Let me in. But the little pigs saw the wolf's narrow eyes through the keyhole. And so they answered back, no, 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 not by the hairs on our chinny chin chin. So the wolf replied, then I'll huff, and I'll puff, and I'll blow your house down.
Jesus once said, everybody who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise builder who built a house on bedrock. The rain fell, the floods came, and the wind blew and beat against the house. It didn't fall because it was firmly set on bedrock.
Well, he huffed and he puffed. He puffed and he huffed. And he huffed and he huffed. And he puffed. But he could not blow the house down. At last he was so out of breath that he couldn't huff and he couldn't puff anymore. So he stopped to rest and he thought a bit. But this was too much. The wolf danced around with rage, and he swore that he would come down the chimney and eat the little pigs for his supper. But while he was climbing onto the roof, the little pig made a blazing fire and put on a full pot of water to boil. Then, just as the wolf was coming down the chimney, the little pig pulled off the lid and plop! In fell the wolf into the scalding water. So the little piggy put on the cover again, tightened it down, boiled the wolf up. And the three little pigs ate him for supper. As a kid, our church nursery where I was growing up had this toy that you could watch the cartoon with this little cartridge that you would put in, you'd crank it like this, and you could watch the cartoon take place in motion. And I loved that. I watched that cartoon so many times. A couple of weeks ago, we had a congregational meeting in which we unanimously decided to move forward on a capital campaign with projects that will literally affect the foundation of this church building. And I want to be honest. This church leadership has been talking about the need to do this for years. And when we moved forward with the feasibility study earlier this year, right in the middle of a pandemic, I was not entirely sure that this was a good idea. Yes, we need to fix the roof, and yes, we have foundation issues, and we need to get that fixed. I get all that. But with everything going on in the world, is now the right time to do this? Everything is just weird these days. Our future can seem scary. On Sundays, now half of my flock connects online and half comes to the building, and it's hard to shepherd remotely. And honestly, I feel like I'm playing catch up all the time. And I'm coming to realize that this is the new normal and it's different. But the mission that we put into practice and have for years, that remains. Jesus says that everyone hears these words of mine and then puts them into practice is like a wise builder who built a house on bedrock. This church community is built on the mission to be a blessing to the community. We're not a members-only clubhouse. Not at all. We exist to be a blessing, extending the influence of Christ's core values, the core values of inclusivity, of compassion, justice, mercy, and nonviolence. And the truth is, the world needs communities like this one as a place where anyone can come to put those values into practice. And in a community that is replete with country clubs and with studios with great fitness facilities, the truth is that there is almost nowhere within miles that people can gather in a safe, affordable place for a yoga class, for group meditation, to work out, to practice spiritual, physical, and mental wellness. I talked to a woman 2 weeks ago who has led classes like that in this neighborhood in a studio, who is thinking about doing something new and maybe doing something in our space here. I see that happening. And at the town hall feasibility meeting I went to, I heard this idea about getting local restaurateurs to come and to make a special, like a high-end dinner in our newly refurbished kitchen, which would highlight the best of our Kansas City food. And we've got great food in this city. And then using the revenue from those events to then help our mission with the Cross Lines Kitchen. I love that. I see that happening. And as a parent, I have seen that there are precious few places where kids can just get together and hang out. Every day after school, literally hundreds of kids walk past our door looking for a place. And I'll tell you, I know the folks at Starbucks don't really want them. But with a redesigned social hall, could we be that place that those kids need or want to come? Could we fill that need? I see that happening. And you know, there are grants out there that would pay for staffing something like that. Everyone who puts Jesus' mission into practice will find that their efforts are not in vain. What moved my heart to get excited about this campaign isn't about the shingles or the paint. It's about putting our mission into practice even better. It's about blessing this wider community with the healing core values that this world needs more of. So I've come around. I've come to think that what we can do, what we can put into practice with this capital campaign is absolutely necessary. The future of this church community may not see the space here filled to the gills on Sunday mornings. Our future may be to see this place used every day of the week by hundreds of people, offering a blessing, making a difference in people's lives. And that, to me, is what we're about. So when those fears about the future come knocking, they come knocking saying, little pigs, let me in. We will look back with the confidence of putting Christ's teachings into practice and say together, no, 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 not by the hairs on our chinny chin chin. Amen.